Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. Today we're going to be breaking down some of the top 32 decks from the World Championships Day 2. Now, we don't have every single deck list available, but we do have a good majority of the decks available here to look at and analyze. Of course, with Obsidian Flames being out, the meta is going to be a bit different, but not by much. I think the meta is mostly going to be the same, albeit we will have, of course, the addition of Charizard EX to look at, but it's safe to say that the World's meta is still going to be what we're most likely going to see for Pittsburgh, in September. So let's take a look here at some of the top 32 deck lists, kind of look at some certain tech cards and key things about them, kind of breaking them down. So we'll start things off, of course, with the winner, Vance Kelly. So, of course, Vance did win Worlds with Mew VMAX. Quite a surprise that people, that Mew VMAX won. Mew, of course, is a pretty strong deck that a lot of people really underestimated. And obviously, with the popularity of Spiritomb, there was reason to believe why Mew VMAX would probably flop at the World Championships. But it ended up winning the tournament anyways, which is kind of insane. The fact that Mew VMAX won Worlds is kind of an insane statement to say, in all honesty. But yeah, this deck list is pretty straightforward. Once again, it's a Fusion Mew deck with a couple of spicy things. The big one is the Crystal Cave and the Box of Disaster. Crystal Cave has been used before as a way to kind of counter Sableye on your Genesect. But also, the Box of Disaster is really, really smart. So Mew can struggle against Gardevoir, and Box of Disaster is really good. Of course, if Box of Disaster is attached to your Mew VMAX and it gets knocked out in one hit, then that attacking Pokemon takes 8 damage. Not only is this good to set up KOs on another Pokemon later on with a second Mew, but it also just enables a free KO against Gardevoir. It makes it very hard for Gardevoir to navigate the Mew VMAX matchup, especially when you do have the double Lost City. Now, the nice thing about this list is it doesn't play Ice-Q. Vance actually opted to play an Oricorio instead of playing the Ice-Q, as Oricorio is actually really good in the mirror match. Can be really good against most decks. I mean, Arceus, obviously, Oricorio is good against. It's pretty helpful against quite a few different decks in the format. But yeah, it is good in the mirror. And of course, Vance did win in the Mew mirror match in top 4. So there is reason to believe the Oricorio was a big help over not playing the Ice-Q. Because not having the Ice-Q means you don't have a direct way to snipe Spiritomb. So Vance didn't really have a way to kind of counter Spiritomb as well. But I don't know if there was much Spiritomb in top 8 anyways. So Vance winning with Mew. And then, of course, we got Tord, who got second place at Worlds with his Guardy deck. His Guardy list is unique. He does play quite a few interesting cards that you don't usually see within Gardevoir. The first one is the Mirage Step Kirlia, which allows you to set up 3 Kirlias. It's actually really good when you're playing against any deck that can, target Ralts. When you, of course, prize a bunch of Ralts early on, it's really good to have the Kirlia because it just allows you to set up multiple things at once, and it's a bit easier to use Kirlia when you're unable to find Ralts. It's good if you get like a slow start too. Tord also plays double Reversal Energy. This was a very big deal. I mean, 2 reversals is kind of insane. Not only can you try to stack the reversals on your Gardevoir over the course of 2 turns, but you can also use it as a way to, well, you just have high odds of finding Reversal Energy because you play 2 of them, right? You use it as a good way to find 2 as you have more in the deck than just 1. Because playing 1 reversal, you can whiff it. Not only does that, Tord has 1 Force Seal Stone in the deck, so he has 3 outs to finding a Reversal Energy when he needs it. Ironically enough, there was a game loss against Vance, where had he hit the reversal off of maybe, I think it was like a Research, a Top Deck, a Kirlia, and a Gardevoir, he would have most likely won that game. Even playing 2, it didn't work out in Tord's favor. Tord also only plays 3 Iono and 2 Research, so not a whole lot of draw supporters in the deck, just 5 in total. He does play a Lost Vacuum, which obviously is pretty good against other tools like Box of Disaster, and can be obviously a way to counter Path to the Peak. So yeah, Tord's list was really unique, and I think it's a very interesting spin on Gardevoir. I think there are some pretty cool takeaways. I think the Lost Vacuum is something that I think Gardevoir naturally could just play. I mean, there are pretty good counters to Gardevoir in the format, especially now that we have Vengeful Punch in the format, which could be another way that people try to counter Gardevoir. So Vacuum might just now be a staple within Gardevoir decks going forward. Then, of course, we got Michael Pram getting in 3rd place with the Lost Tina. And as you can see, Pram's list does not play Spiritomb. So, I mean, maybe Vance did have a clear shot at winning. Even if he hit Pram, Pram didn't play the Spiritomb. But Pram does play 2 Path of the Peak. Pram's list is pretty straightforward for most Tina lists you'd see. He does play the Snorlax, though, which is a really good attacker in the Mirror and other Lost Zone decks. And it's also pretty good against Arceus, if you ever need that big cram into Snorlax hit. But the main, obviously, attacker in the deck is going to be the 3/3 Giratina. I thought Giratina was going to flop, to be honest, after day one, but it did get top four, so I was sort of wrong. I mean, to be fair, I don't know if there was much Tina after that, but Tina did have a decent performance in Worlds, which color me surprised. And of course, we got top four. We got Azul here with his Mew deck. Bit different than Vance's deck. He doesn't play Crystal Cave, doesn't play the Box of Disaster, does play the Ice Cube over the Oricorio. So, yeah, pretty solid list, obviously. Another just kind of straightforward Mew deck. But yeah, Mew seemed to be a pretty good meta call for day two at Worlds. And with the lack of Spiritomb, it probably was a good call. We got another Mew deck in top four here. Pretty similar to Azul's list, just playing the Meloetta Ice Cube split. He's got the cleansing gloves in the deck, 3/4 seals. Yeah, pretty much like almost identical to Azul's list, to be honest. Even though they're not in the same testing group, but identical enough. And then, of course, we got Victor here with the Gardevoir deck. This one is different than Tord's list. It does have a few similarities, like the 3 Iono 2 Research, but it is slightly different. There's no double reversal. There's no 4 Seal Stone, no Luminion, no Lost Vacuum. He does play Worker and Penny, which are two pretty good cards within Gardevoir. Even the stadiums are different. He plays Collapsed, Artisan, and Tempo Sinnoh, where Tord, I think, just played Artisan and Collapsed Stadium. Doesn't play the Mirage Step Curly either. So this kind of like more straightforward Guardy list that we've been used to since the Paldea format, seems to be the one that maybe didn't perform as well as Tord's list, of course, with the more tech-heavy build of Gardevoir. Unfortunately, we do not have the other two decks in top 8. There was another Lost Tina in top 8, so there were two within top 8. So Tina definitely didn't flop. And then, of course, we also see a Lost Box deck, which, again, we don't have the list available yet for these two deck lists, but we do have Cyrus Davis's 9th place Palkia Xianpao deck. Now, this is not a Xianpao deck. A lot of people consider this to be a Xianpao deck. This is not a Xianpao. This is very much a Palkia deck that uses Xianpao for its ability. You can attack with Xianpao, but for the most part, this is a Palkia V-Star deck. A lot of people say this is people say this is a Xianpao deck. It is not Xianpao. Xianpao's not your main attacker. You attack with Palkia within this deck. But yeah, this deck is really, really cool, and I think it's actually pretty strong. Especially, it was a good Worlds call for sure. Now, Cyrus did play two different versions of this list. I think in day 1, she played no Articuno, and in day 2, she played the Articuno. She actually cut the Canceling Cologne out of the deck for the Articuno. But in day 1, she played Cologne. Day 2, she played the Articuno. And the Articuno, I'm pretty sure, is just there for Gardevoir. Also pretty good against stuff like Lugia, and can be good against like Arcpiles. So probably a pretty solid tech conclusion. I don't know what other matchups you're going to use it in, but it is pretty good in the deck regardless. Maybe even... Now, you're not going to use it against Lost Tina. I just thought about Lost Tina now. It's probably just there for like Gardevoir, Lugia, and maybe Arcpiles. I think the main matchup would probably be for Gardevoir, if I would assume correctly. But yeah, Palkia is very strong. I mean, it's a very aggressive deck. It's basically the nature of this deck. It's just basically very aggressive, and it tempos really well against your opponent with the Cross Switchers, the Lost City. The ability to just do a ton of damage with Palkia turn 2 is really good. That's what makes this deck so scary, is that this deck can really do tons of damage on the second turn of the game, especially because of Subspace Swell's power. We are in a meta where the bench is pretty good, so a lot of people will bench Pokemon, and then Palkia does more damage. It can cap at 260, but you can make some crazy plays with Radiant Greninja in the deck. That's kind of your main way to deal with Lost Box and Guardy is the Radiant Greninja. You go Radiant Greninja, knock out a couple of Ralston Curlias, you have the Cross Switcher. Ideally, you go Cross Switcher Cologne on Manaphy, but there's no Cologne in here to do that. But you can always just boss Lost City at Manaphy and then Greninja later on in the game anyways. The Spiritomb is also a smart inclusion by Cyrus. A lot of these Palkia lists don't play Spiritomb, but Cyrus decided to play it, and it actually worked out for her. I mean, she had a game on stream where she played against Mew, and she beat the Mew pretty convincingly, mainly because of how good Spiritomb was. And who knows, maybe if Cyrus got top 8, she could have been favored to take down the tournament, because I think she was favored against most of the decks in top 8. Albeit, because she didn't play the Canceling Cologne, there's a world where maybe Tord would have been a little bit more difficult, but Cyrus does play the Articuno, which is for the Guardy matchup, so maybe it would have worked out. But Cyrus did have a decent shot at winning Worlds if she got in top 8. The meta was decent for her. I mean, all the Mews in top 8 were pretty good matchups, because not only do you trade with one of them with Palkia against her Genesect, but you do have that Spiritomb on top of that, and you saw that Vance didn't play the Ice Cube, which would have been a lot more difficult for Vance to counter the Palkia or the Spiritomb. And I think Cyrus is like decent into Lost Tina. I don't think Palkia is that bad against Lost Tina. You are a very aggressive deck that can out tempo Lost Tina sometimes. So yeah, I think that Cyrus maybe could have won Worlds if she got in top 8, just because her deck looked pretty well positioned going into top 8. But she did bubble at 9th place. We do see Brent here with another Guardy deck at 10th place. This one is a lot more conventional and straightforward. 2 Collapse, 12 Energies, 4 Iono. No research, though, is kind of crazy, but the 12th Energies does make sense because it does allow you to have more basic energy. Cutting the reversal, though, is, I think, the big takeaway here. This deck doesn't play any reversal energy. And I've always said that, like, the all basic energy build of Guardies are still pretty solid, even though reversal energy does give you a lot more counterplay. Not playing reversals is also perfectly fine. And you see that Brent did prove that right by getting 10th place at Worlds. Does play the Doubleization. This is a very old build of Gardevoir, probably from like the Scarlet and Violet meta is kind of what that looks like. We see Alex Shemansky getting 11th place with the Rapid Strike deck. Now, Rapid Strike was a fine meta call for Worlds, but with all the Mew and Lugia running around, it might not have been the greatest call. However, Alex did have a couple cool things in the deck. He did play the Spiritomb and the Giacomo in the deck, the Giacomo, which allows you to discard all the fusion energy off your opponent's board once they build them up. And then, of course, you have Spiritomb on top of that to slow them down, which is pretty clever. So you have the Giacomo. You can move the energy on the Genesect, and then you can have the Spiritomb activated. But yeah, Alex's list is pretty solid. I think Rapid Strike was still an okay play if you're hitting Lost Box and, even Tina, which isn't that bad of a matchup. The deck is good. Now, fun fact about Worlds this year. Alex, Cyrus, Azul, and Tord all got top 16. So all of our IC winners this season, OC, NE, LA, and EUIC, all the winners got top 16 at Worlds. I think that's a really cool fun fact. But yeah, Alex did do pretty well with Rapid Strike, the highest placing Rapid Strike deck. I didn't think Rapid Strike was going to be that good of a deck for Worlds, and I think Alex might have been the only Rapid Strike in top 32 here, but it was a pretty good meta call. Or no, there's another one. Alex Krecker got it. But Alex is in Alex's group, so makes sense. Next up, we got a Lugia, the highest placing Lugia deck. So Lugia is another deck that I think, had it gone far enough, could have had a shot of winning Worlds. I think Lugia could have taken down Tina under the right circumstances against Michael Premawan, and I think that Lugia, as long as you set up Archeops, I think you should be pretty favored into Mew VMAX because you have a lot of Dark attackers in the deck, and you have Gift Energy, which can make it very hard, and Mew doesn't play Fan of Waves anymore, obviously, so I think Lugia could have made it all the way had Lugia gotten top 8 of Worlds this year. So that's kind of just another, thing where it's like, this is another deck, like Cyrus's deck, that had it gotten top 8, we maybe could have seen Lugia be the world champion or Palkia be the world champion. But yeah, this Lugia deck is very conventional and straightforward. We do see the Urshifu in the deck. The Urshifu, I think, is still good. Even with Duraludon falling off, Urshifu is still just a very strong card in the format, regardless. It's also just good against Arc decks in general. But yeah, Lugia is a very solid deck right now. I think Lugia maybe gets a little worse with Obsidian Flames, because Lugia does struggle against Charizard. You don't really have a good answer to Charizard. I mean, you do have a Pinsir, but I don't think the Pinsir is worth playing to counter Charizard. I think Lugia is going to have to start taking a bit of a harder time into Charizard nowadays, but I think that Lugia is still fine in our Obsidian Flames format. It just gets a little bit worse because it does gain a bit of a harder matchup with Lost Charizard, or with with Arc Charizard, but I think Lugia is still a solid deck, and we do see the Urshifu Tyranitar build. And again, this is another deck that maybe could have won the tournament had it got top 8. We do have a bit of a gap between deck lists here. We don't see a Shampoo list, 2 Lost Box list, and a Mew list. But we see another Lugia list here in 17th place. This one does not play the Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, actually opts to instead play the Stonjourner, which is perfectly fine. I don't think you needed Urshifu for Worlds, because I don't think Duraludon was going to do that good. We did see a Duraludon deck do pretty well, though. We did see a Aggron Dura deck. I don't think we're able to see the deck list, though. I don't think it's in the top 32 of Limit, sadly. But Arc Aggron was a really solid and cool deck that we saw at Worlds, but it didn't play the Duraludon. But this deck does play the Stonjourner. And yeah, again, another example that, hey, if Lugia went far enough in top 8, it could have won the tournament. Lugia was potentially positioned to win Worlds had a Lugia gone top 8. We see another Lost Tina here in top 32. This one is a bit different from Pram's. Just doesn't play the Snorlax. It plays Cross Switcher and 3-Path. Cross Switcher Tina is very interesting. I think a lot of people were kind of sold on the Cross Switcher list version, but the Cross Switcher build does still have a lot of really cool plays that can be made. It allows you to be a bit more aggressive with your attacks and can make for some cool plays that can come out of nowhere. So I think the Cross Switcher build is cool. This also doesn't play Iono. Opts to play double Roxanne in the deck instead over the Iono, which is pretty interesting. Because Roxanne, it doesn't work until later on in the game, where Iono, you can play it early on if you don't have a good hand, and you happen to find Iono. I guess it's kind of hit or miss. We do see a Miraidon deck. We see Mahone got 20th place. So congrats to Mahone. Wait, he got 21st place, right? Did I misread that? No, he got 21st place. But yeah, congrats to Mahone for getting 21st at Worlds this year with a very cool Miraidon deck. So this is a bit of a different take on Miraidon. It does play your conventional Miraidon, Raichu attackers, plays the Flaffies. But the big thing in Mahone's list here, and I'm pretty sure Mahone brought this with all of his group, including Riley and Flex Daddy. They all played 4 Path of the Peaks. This was a Path Miraidon deck. So Path is very strong in the format. Obviously, really good against Gardevoir, good against Mew, good against Arc Piles, good against quite a few different decks. So the idea behind this is that you just attack with Miraidon. You play very aggressive with your attacks thanks to Generator, getting turn 1 attacks off, and you get to put Path of the Peak in play, which, well, it does shut off Fleet-Footed and Tandem Unit. You don't mind that because you're being so aggressive, you're putting on so much pressure that Path is making it very hard for your opponent to play the game. Well, you're just able to kind of just run them over really quickly, and that's the idea behind the Path. Path Miraidon is a deck that I think has potential, could be the staple for Miraidon going forward. In all honesty, I think the concept is very strong, and we'll have to see if Path Miraidon performs well again. I think it's a very solid deck. I think it's a really cool idea to play Path of Peaks with Miraidon, and we can see that Mahone did do really well at Worlds with it, and it proves that the idea of playing Path Miraidon is really, really good. And of course, we see another Lugia deck here by Daichi, who is another very good player. Doesn't play the single strike Urshifu. Daichi decided to actually play a Path of the Peak in the list, which is an interesting tech card. Good in the mirror, good against Arc, obviously. Once you do Summoning Star, you can put Path in play. Also good against Gardevoir and Mew VMAX, which, I mean, having a Path against Mew seems kind of dirty because not only do you have 3 good Dark attackers, you also have a Path of the Peak, so it's like, I mean, that's a pretty good way to beat Mew, don't get me wrong, because you can't really play Spiritomb in Lugia because you shut off your own Lumineon, which can hinder you sometimes. We see Bastion Silva's list here. You can't see it, though. The list is not available, but he was on stream, so if you really wanted the list, you can go back on the stream and maybe piece together. We finally get a Lost Zone list here. This is a Turbo Lost Box deck here. Again, Turbo Lost Box just being a good deck in general. We did see one in top 8. I'm pretty sure it's Turbo Lost Box in top 8. This one doesn't have any surprises, apart from maybe the Bravery Charm, but other than that, it is just your straightforward, conventional Turbo Lost Box deck. We do see another Fusion Mew here. Cameron Chamoy getting top 32 with Mew. Fusion Mew without an Oricorio or an Ice-Q, just playing the Meloetta. So a bit of a different take on Mew. Does have a bit more disruption in the deck with the double Path and the double Judge, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, we see Fabio doing pretty well with Lost Goodra, another deck that I didn't really think we were going to really see do that well at Worlds this year, but it seems that Lost Goodra is a solid play for Worlds. Now, this is a really cool list because I think this is very similar to the one from the Asia Open where it plays the Sableye Zamazenta split. It actually does have a lot of text in the deck. It's got Tomb, Sableye, Zam, double Goodra. Not only does it play Spiritomb, there's also a Drapion in the deck. So this is a super teched out Goodra deck, which is kind of bizarre to be honest with all the text going on. But hey, it got top 32. Did something right. It's a really cool list. I think there's a lot of potential for Lost Goodra to maybe make a comeback. The Zamazenta is really cool in the deck as a really strong attacker against Xianpao, which was very popular at Worlds this year. So, cool list. Very, very teched out list. I mean, there's 2 Path, there's an Iono Roxanne split, there's a Drapion, a Spiritomb with a Drapion. That's something you don't really see every day. Pretty crazy stuff. And then, of course, we do see another Lost Box list from John Eng. Another Turbo Lost Box list. Yeah, no surprise. Does play that Roxanne tech, though, which obviously is good. Then we see Alex Kreckler with the Rapid Strike deck. Very much the same list as Alex Shemansky. They're both in the same testing group. But yeah, Alex with the Rapid Strike deck. Rapid Strike, again, pretty good deck for the tournament. They did have to tech it out a little bit to try to beat Mew, but it did work out in their favor, as both of them did get top 32 with the list. And we see another Miraidon deck from Sajin Park. Sajin's a really good player. I mean, unfortunately, we can't see Sajin's Miraidon list. We see Karen here. The only Xianpao list available to us is Kieran's list. Now, Kieran's list is very interesting. I don't think there's an Arceus or Palkia, so this list does not play the Arc Palkia engine. Instead, it opts to play heavy Bibarel in the deck for draw, and I think that's pretty fair. I mean, that just means you're not going to lose to Ionos as much or Judge Path. But yeah, Xianpao is obviously just a very strong deck right now in the format. It's going to continue to be good. I think Xianpao is actually even better in Obsidian Flames because I think Xianpao has a good matchup against Arceus. Or not Arceus, Charizard. Well, Arceus Charizard. Yeah, Shampoo has a good matchup against Arceus Charizard, which is one of the things that gives people some hope for Shampoo in the Obsidian Flames format. I think it gets even better. You can see Kieran does play the double canceling clone in the deck. Again, just not having the Arceus V-Star, just opting for the double Bibarel instead. And I think that's pretty fair that that was what Kieran played, because double Bibarel does give you more draw, and it helps against Iono and Judge, and that means you're kind of all in on the Shampoo attack. But pretty good list. I kind of like Kieran's list quite a bit. And that was the last top 32 list we can look at here. Unfortunately, there are lists that are still unavailable, but this is what we got to look at for now. All right, we're not done yet. We actually do have decks outside of the top 32 to take a look at here. So we go on PokeStats here, and we can actually see the other list. Now, unfortunately, we don't have every list available, but we do still have extra lists to take a look at outside of top 32. From Day 2 at Worlds. So we can take a look at a few more here. We got Jack Moore, who got 33rd place, which feels pretty bad, on the Kyogre Lost Zone deck. So some people thought Kyogre was going to make a comeback this year. I wasn't, as, shocked to see it do well. I think a couple people were going to play it. It's a pretty strong deck. It can catch your opponent off guard. Nobody expects the Kyogre, and the Kyogre is also just a very strong card in most matchups, especially with the amount of V-Stars in the meta right now, with Giratina, Arceus, and Lugia. It actually isn't a bad card to play, and could have been good, too, into the Mew meta, so I think that Kyogre was a decent call for Worlds. So it is cool to see Kyogre do so well. And who knows, maybe Kyogre will make a comeback. And then we got Xander here with the Mew deck. Xander's been a pretty big fan of Mew for a while now, and we do see it's just kind of a conventional Mew list. I don't think there's much in it. There's the Ice Cube, no Ice Cube. There's the Oricorio, like Vance played. I don't think there's a Box of Disaster, though. We do see the double choice belt cleansing gloves there above Alisa and Boss. So, yeah, Mew seemed to be a good call for Worlds, which is honestly kind of surprising. We do see here another Lost Tina deck here in 37th place. Take a look at this list here real quick. So this Lost Tina list, again, just play the Path, the Tomb, the Iono, and double Roxanne. So actually a pretty heavy supporter count there. Double Roxanne and Iono, which, I mean, the more disruption, the merrier, right? There is warrant to having two, heavy disruption cards in the deck. So it makes sense. But, yeah, another Lost Tina deck here to kind of take a look at. And, again, didn't flop at Worlds this year, like I predicted. We got a Miraidon Regieleki deck in 39th place at Worlds this year. Now, that's pretty crazy to see now. We do see this Miraidon Regieleki deck is pretty turbo. We see Trekking Shoes. We see Squawkabilly in the deck. Pretty cool stuff. Even Switching Cups. Now, Switching Cups is kind of smart. Not only can it act as like a pseudo draw one card sometimes in the late game, but it also lets you put a light energy on top of your deck for electric generators. So that's a really cool card. This is actually a really cool list, to be honest. And again, Miraidon isn't a bad deck for Worlds. This one does not play Path. It does play 4 copies of Beach Court, opting for no Path. Obviously, you can't play Path in Regieleki because the whole point of the deck is you're trying to abuse Regieleki's ability, and Path shuts it off. And it's not bad. I mean, Miraidon Regieleki is a very deadly deck. Regieleki does let Miraidon hit pretty high numbers against V-Star decks, and that's probably why we see the heavy Regieleki count in the deck. So really cool list. Again, a lot of lists here we don't have. Unfortunately, big unfortunate, we actually can't see the Arceus Aggron deck. The list is not available, which is really unfortunate. I know a lot of people probably really want to see what is in the list. I'm pretty sure the list plays a 1/1 Dura. Yeah, we can't see the Arc Aggron deck. That sucks. Does Arc Aggron get any better, though, heading into the Obsidian Flames meta? Honestly, yeah, I don't think it's a bad deck for the Obsidian Flames format. It's just unfortunate we can't see the list again. It's cool, though, that a deck like this... I knew there was going to be at least, like, one oddball Arc deck in Day 2. Like, I figured it would happen. It was inevitable, right? I think there always was going to be an oddball Arc deck. Arc Aggron, nobody would have expected that. But, unfortunately, the list is not available, which sucks. There's another deck here. We don't know what they played. We don't know what you played there. But we do see a Matthew Burris on the Gardevoir deck. So let's take a look at the list here real quick. Yeah, here it is, the Guardy list. Again, no reversal energy, opting for all basic energy. I'm pretty sure this is very similar to... there's a list earlier we saw in Day 2 that they play. I forget their name, but I think they might be the same testing group. But yeah, another Guardy list here with no reversal energy, which I still think is a good way to play Gardevoir. We see a Turbo Lost Box deck here in Day 2. This one, yeah, you can't really see it to kind of flip your head around, but it looks like it's just a Turbo list. I don't see any Kyogre or anything. I see the Drapion, Dragonite, and Raikou. We got another Turbo Lost Zone deck here, and this one does play, again, just your normal stuff. It does play the Roxanne, but yeah, no Kyogre. So I wonder if Jack was the only Kyogre that got Day 2. We see Jeremy Evans here with the Lugia Single Strike deck. Yeah, Lugia Single Strike's pretty good. This one does not play Urshifu, so again, the Urshifu not being played. I mean, hey, Duraludon making a comeback. Again, we'll have to see where Lugia goes in the Obsidian Flames format, because I don't know how good of a matchup the matchup against Charizard might be awkward, but I think Single Strike Lugia still has potential in the new format. Nick Moffat on the Lost Tina. Nick Moffat played, or no, that's Lost Box. What the heck? Was it not Lost Tina? It says it's Lost Tina, but it's not. It's Lost Box. Now the big one, I know a lot of people are excited to see this. Sander was playing a control deck. Of course, Sander only plays control, so let's take a look at Sander's list real quick. So Sander played a control deck. Now Sander has stated in the past that control is kind of hard in the format right now, but this is a really, really cool list. Now, if you want to learn more about the deck, I would definitely recommend going on Sander's post here and reading, because he does explain the matchups in more in depth in the comments of the post. But definitely a really awesome deck to see. It's always cool to see Sander innovate and play these control decks to Worlds, and this one is really unique. As you can see, there are some returning faces like Regieleki and Evil Tall, and Radiant Greninja is another big one. Mimikyu sub out the Miltank. And we got Rotom for draw. But there are some other cool cards. We see Vulpix. Now, Vulpix V-Star is obviously really good against Gardevoir and other decks like Xianpao. You don't really, there's not really that many ways to, control a matchup like that. But the Vulpix does give you that type of control. And the Espeon VMAX is the big one. I'm not sure what that's for. He probably explained it somewhere in the comments. It's to stop memory skip. Okay, all right. It's to stop memory skip. So the idea behind Espeon is you put a Moon and Sun badge on it, and then you can go Vulpix, and then Gardevoir cannot memory skip you. So that's what that was for. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. We see the Luxray. Luxray's pretty good against Lost Box. Now, the Bouffalante's another big one. So Bouffalant allows you to remove an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon and put it into the Lost Zone. So the idea behind the Bouffalant is that it's supposed to slow the opponent down and move their energy. It's pretty good against Fringe decks that rely heavily on only one energy type. Also pretty good against Arctina. I think that's a big one that Sander pointed out. But it's a really cool list. The new Age of Control. Definitely give the deck a try. I think this deck could be good in the Obsidian Flames format. I think Vulpix might get stronger with Obsidian Flames, just saying. So if you want to play this deck in our new format, Obsidian Flames, I think that it actually isn't a terrible play by any means. We do see a Lost Tina deck here. Once again, doing pretty well with the Cross-Switcher build of Lost Tina. And we got more Turbo Lost Box. I don't know if we're going to see any more Kyogre. Oh, no. No deck list. Oh, no, the deck list is available. He took one of the meme picks here, but it is just a Turbo Lost Zone deck. We see an interesting one. All right, we got another pile. We got Owen Kammerman with the Arc Umbreon deck. This is the Michael Catron deck. Yeah, it looks like it's identical to Michael's list. A few inclusions like the Avery, but it looks very similar to Michael Catron's Arc pile he played. But yeah, this is another Arc pile. I wish we got the Aggron list too. That's the big one we got to get, but it's cool to see more Arc piles. I'm a huge Arc fan. And then we got an interesting Palkia Guardy list. So it's not like Cyrus's list with the Bibarel, but this one does play Gardevoir as its engine. So the idea behind Gardevoir is you're trying to get your deck down low where you can activate the Kyogre play with the Cross-Switcher Cologne Kyogre combo, and you use Palkia early on as a big attacker. So this is a really cool deck. This is a deck that I know a lot of people have tried before. So it's something that has been on people's radar for a while. And someone doing well at Worlds with it is pretty cool. We've seen it a couple times like Day 2 at Regionals, but to see it at the World Championships Day 2 is kind of insane. And I think that's about it for all the deck lists that are available. There's the senior deck list, obviously. I think the winner in the seniors division was playing Lugia Slacking. Yeah, this was a colorless Lugia. So colorless Lugia actually won in the seniors division, which is pretty cool to see. This is actually similar to the list that won the late night tournament a while back. I don't know if you remember, I did a video where I said Lugia Slacking won the late night, and this is the exact same list, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe I'll be at a few changes, but yeah, colorless Lugia winning is actually pretty cool to see. We'll have to see if colorless Lugia picks up any steam going forward in the format, but it's cool to see colorless Lugia win in the seniors division. But I don't see any other lists available here, unfortunately. But yeah, there you go. That is basically it for all of the Day 2 lists we have available for the World Championships this year. Really cool stuff, and it was an interesting turnout. Again, Mew winning, something I would have not expected to see coming. Mew winning Worlds was something that I was not expecting to see in 2023. But yeah, Mew VMAX won the World Championships. And that'll be for me on the second channel. If y'all enjoyed today's video, leave a like. I'll leave a link to Limitless and Pokestats down below if you want to go look at everything yourself and give everything, give yourself your own kind of read on all these lists and stuff. Maybe if you wanted to play any of them, any League Cups or League Challenges that are coming up. And we'll have to see how it goes into the Obsidian Flames format. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, again, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button down below. Help us on the road to reaching 7K subscribers, and I'll catch you on another video. Bye-bye.